What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the Fantasy Football Fellas YouTube channel. My name is Tyler Plath, and we are running it back, folks. Waiver Wire Monday, where we are discussing all the players that you should be looking for and targeting on waivers for this upcoming week of football. We go through 8 guys, and the last 2 guys are our quarterback and tight end streams of the week. And in week 11, we saw some unfortunate and season-ending injuries to some key players. But that opens the door for some of the guys on this list for more opportunities. So before I begin, this is the spot for all things football and fantasy football. So if you are looking for that spot, welcome. You've found the right place. So make sure you are subscribed and leave a like on this video to show your support. It's greatly, greatly appreciated. Now on to our first player, who is Zach Charbonnet. And Charbs has been on our waiver wire video the past couple weeks, and he makes it again because Kenneth Walker suffered an oblique injury in week 11. And after that injury, it was all Zach Charbonnet. He finished with 15 rushing attempts for 47 yards, which wasn't great. It's only 3 yards a carry, but he did have 6 catches for 22 yards. That receiving work with the rushing volume he saw makes him by and far, by a country mile, the top ad this week on waivers. Now, Seattle does have a tough stretch of games. They have San Francisco twice. They have Dallas. They have Philly and Tennessee down the road. And we also don't know the extent of Walker's injury. We don't know the severity of it. So it's hard to make an argument if Zach Charbonnet, is going to be a league winner this year or anything like that. But respectfully, I don't care if he's a league winner or not. Because what I see in front of me is a workhorse back for the foreseeable future. And I want that on my team regardless of who they play. Next up is Ravens tight end Isaiah Likely, who now takes over for the injured Mark Andrews, who is unfortunately done for the year. And in week 11, Isaiah Likely, in the increased role that he was suddenly put into, he didn't really do much. But if we look back in 2022 in the games without Mark Andrews, Isaiah Likely put up 9.4 and 18.3 fantasy points. Now, we can't just copy and paste those points into this year, but it's still a potential reality. The thing to know for Likely is that their likely, won't be as much of a dependence on him as there was last year in Mark Andrews' absence. And that is because of the increased depth in the wide receiver room for Baltimore, which includes our next guy, actually, Odell Beckham Jr. Great segue there. Now, Odell had his best game as a Raven so far, leading the team in targets and hauling in 4 of them for $116 in yards. On the year, Odell Beckham Jr. might just be Lamar's favorite target, as Odell leads the team in targets per route run despite only running a route on 51% of the team's total routes. We're going to see an increase in routes for Odell due to Mark Andrews' injury, and as Lamar's preferred target, that should turn into more fantasy points. So both Isaiah Likely and Odell Beckham Jr. are going to see an increased role moving forward, which makes them both intriguing. But if you had to choose between one or the other, my vote would be for Odell. Now we're going to get real gross with this next one because we are diving back to the New England Patriots and we're talking about their new wide receiver one, Demario Douglas. The Patriots are coming back from their bye week, but before the bye week in the 2 games without Kendrick Bourne, who became their wide receiver one before he tore his ACL, it was Demario Douglas who emerged as the wide receiver one, boasting a 27% target share. And with that target share, he finished as the wide receiver 28 and wide receiver 23. I know it's the Patriots offense and it's just gross no matter how you look at it. And heck, even wide receiver 23 and wide receiver 28 finishes aren't anything spectacular. But Douglas has emerged as the go-to guy for Mac Jones and potentially Bailey Zappi, because it's been rumored and reported that there may be a quarterback change in New England. But regardless, if you are needing some wide receiver help, Douglas is a great option, especially coming off of their bye week. And speaking of bye weeks, the Saints are also coming back from their bye week. And there's a wide open door for Rashid Shaheed to start producing more consistently. That was also a great segue. Way to go, Ty. We talked about Rashid Shaheed last week for that very reason, because Michael Thomas left week 10 with an injury that head coach Dennis Allen called fairly significant. Now, that's all that we really know about it, and that was a week ago, so things may have changed. But it wouldn't surprise me if MT is out at least another week or two, which means Rashid Shaheed becomes the wide receiver 2 just based on usage. And in MT's absence in week 10, Shaheed drew a season-high 9 targets. Rashid Shaheed is a great under-the-radar option as we get closer and closer to fantasy playoffs. Next up is another gross situation, but the guy has been producing lately. It's Packers wide receiver Jayden Reed. He's finished with 19 fantasy points in back-to-back weeks, and he's been getting it done through the air and also on the ground as he's found pay dirt both ways over that stretch. On the year, Jayden Reed is the wide receiver 35, and he's ahead of guys like Chris Godwin, Drake London, which just hurts my soul, Jahan Dotson, double whammy, and Jerry Jeudy. That is the trifecta right there. On top of that, Jayden Reed leads all Packers receivers in receiving yards. I'm not going to sit here and debate who's the 1, who's the 2, and who's the 3 in the Packers offense, because that's honestly just kind of a waste of time. But Jayden Reed has been turning out performances lately. And if you don't feel comfortable adding him, at least put him on a watch list, because the guy has been producing, again, at a 19 fantasy point clip the past 2 weeks. Last week, we mentioned Ty Chandler as one of the better pickups due to Alexander Mattison picking up a concussion, but he passed protocol and played in week 11, which reverted Chandler to the change of pace backup role. That's going to be the role for him moving forward. But even in that role, he's one of the best handcuffs this year. And I can prove it to you just based on snap count. In a relatively neutral game script for the Vikings last night against the Broncos, Alexander Mattison saw 64% of snaps to Ty Chandler's 30%, 58% of rushing attempts to Chandler's 29%, 50% of routes to Chandler's 18%, 83% of short down and distance snaps went to Mattison, and the remaining 17 went to Chandler. All snaps inside of the 5 went to Alexander Mattison. 44% of long down and distance snaps went to Alexander Mattison, and Ty Chandler only got 22%, and 88% of 2-minute snaps went to Alexander Mattison. You can find all those stats, by the way, over at Matthew Berry's Fantasy Life. We love our friends over there and all the tools that they have for us and for you. Go check them out. Love what they're doing over there. But my point is that this is Alexander Mattison's backfield, which on the surface doesn't sound great for Ty Chandler, but that's why it creates the handcuff value. If anything happens to Mattison, that workload suddenly falls onto Ty Chandler. So if you have Alexander Mattison, do yourself the solid. Stash Ty Chandler just in case, because as we get closer and closer to fantasy playoffs, you would hate to lose Alexander Mattison for whatever reason and not have his backup ready to go. Last player here before our quarterback and tight end stream, and that is Rams wide receiver Tutu Atwell. I love me some Tutu Atwell. Cooper Kupp left early in week 11 with an ankle injury, and we don't know the severity or the extent of the injury, but if you leave a game because of an ankle injury, in my opinion, it's pretty unlikely that you play the following week, at least the following week. The beauty about Tutu Atwell, as I pull up my notes here, is that we've seen what the Rams are without Cooper Kupp and how that positively impacts Tutu Atwell. In weeks 1 through 4 without Cooper Kupp, Tutu Atwell was the wide receiver 20 and was 13th in targets, 18th in receptions, and 18th in receiving yards. When Cooper Kupp came back, Tutu Atwell's target share dropped to 13%. And he went from averaging almost 14 and a half fantasy points per game to 6.3. That's more than half. There might be no one that benefits more from a Cooper Kupp absence than Tutu Atwell. And the one person that I could think of that could make a good argument is Tyler Higbee, who is our tight end stream of the week. Wow, that is 3 for 3 on segues today. Proud of myself. Tyler Higbee, in that same stretch this year without Cooper Kupp, weeks 1 through 4, he was the tight end 9. I feel like that's pretty straightforward. There are no teams on bye in week 12, so you may not need to stream a tight end. But if you have no choice, or heck, I will go as far to say if you have Mark Andrews, I would strongly consider Tyler Higbee in the scenario that Cooper Kupp misses some time. And our quarterback stream of the week is actually on the same team as well. It's Matthew Stafford. Now, Matt Stafford hasn't really been anything special this year, but this is banking on a more competitive, high-scoring game in Week 12 against the Arizona Cardinals. With Kyler Murray back in the fold, the Cardinals offense has been playing better, and they should be able to put up some points on this Rams defense. Likewise, Matt Stafford should be able to put up some points on the Cardinals defense because they won't be playing ahead by as much as they did the first time that these teams met up. Kyren Williams that game ran the ball for about 30 times or something like that. That probably isn't going to happen again the second time around. On top of that, Arizona is allowing the 9th most fantasy points per game to quarterbacks on the year. Just like for Higbee, you may not need to stream a quarterback, but if you have no choice, Matt Stafford gets my vote. And that'll do it. Your top 10 waiver wire ads for week 12 and a quick recap of the guys that we discussed in this video. Zach Charbonnet, Isaiah Likely, Odell Beckham Jr., Demario Douglas, Rashid Shaheed, Jayden Reed, Ty Chandler, Tutu Atwell, Tyler Higbee, and Matt Stafford. A couple of honorable mentions for you this week, starting with Rashad Bateman, who was the second highest in routes ran for the Ravens in week 11. Maybe potentially because of Odell's shoulder bang up, but he did find the end zone. So he is at least one to keep an eye on. And Royce Freeman. Royce Freeman actually outcarried and outsnapped Darrell Henderson on Sunday. And while Kyren Williams is slated to return in week 12, there is potential for Kyren to not get the full workload that he once had before he got hurt. So if you've got the roster spot and or you have Kyren Williams, you may want to consider adding Freeman just as a handcuff on the chance that there is still some work left over for Royce Freeman. Thanks for watching this video. Make sure you are subscribed if you are not. Again, leave a like on this video if you enjoy the content. Go ahead and leave something down in the comments. Someone you are thinking about adding. Someone you are struggling to decide if you should drop them or not. Go ahead and drop those in the comments. We'll be answering away. And again, thanks again for tuning in. And we will see you on the next episode of the Fantasy Football Fellas podcast, which comes out tomorrow. You don't want to miss it. So until then, deuces.